Welcome to the Pencil Bob channel. I hope you enjoy my stories. Please like and subscribe, and hit that notification icon so you never miss out. Now on with the stories. I finally made it back home after what felt like a lifetime away. 18 months on the road had been enough for me. It was time to settle down and enjoy the fruits of my labor. My land, all 130 acres of it, had been my sanctuary, my escape from the hustle and bustle of the world. For the most part, the land was untouched. Thick woods, rolling hills, and a small creek that cut through the property like nature's own ribbon. My house sat on the far side, away from any neighbors, especially those in the nearby HOA neighborhood that always seemed to be embroiled in some kind of petty drama. This time, though, as I rode my ATV across the property, something felt off. The air was different, almost heavy, with an undercurrent of disturbance. I steered my way toward the far side of the land, the part that bordered the HOA. As I approached, I saw something that made me slam on the brakes, dust flying up in a cloud around me. There, on my land, was a small parking lot and a store. A goddamn store. I stared at it for a moment, trying to process what I was seeing. The store was surrounded by a fence, as if someone had the audacity to claim that piece of my land. The fence was tall and imposing, with sharp, barbed wire coiled menacingly along the top, clearly designed to keep intruders out. My blood started to boil as I scanned the perimeter, noticing the freshly painted "No Trespassing" signs that seemed to mock my rightful ownership. Who the hell would have the nerve to build on my property without my permission? The sight of construction equipment scattered around the site only fueled my anger, as I wondered how long this had been going on under my nose. I felt a mix of disbelief and outrage, my mind racing with questions about who was responsible and how they managed to bypass any notification to me. The nerve of it all was infuriating, and I knew I had to get to the bottom of this unauthorized encroachment on my land. There was only one house next to that part of my land, and it belonged to Karen. Classic Karen. You know the type. The world revolved around her, or so she thought. She lived on a measly quarter-acre lot, but somehow, in her mind, that gave her dominion over the universe. We hadn't crossed paths much, but I'd heard enough from the neighbors to know she was trouble. The type who'd call the cops on kids for playing too loud or complain about the color of someone's mailbox. And now this? Building on my land? I hopped off the ATV and stormed over to her house, not even bothering to take the path that wound through the neatly trimmed garden. My boots crunched on the gravel, the sound sharp and aggressive, mirroring the turmoil brewing inside me as I marched up to her front door. Each step felt heavy with purpose, fueled by a mix of indignation and urgency. I pounded on the door, my fists connecting with the wood in a rhythm that echoed my frustration, each knock resonating like a battle cry. The air was thick with tension, and I could feel my heart racing, adrenaline surging through my veins as I waited for her to answer. I envisioned her startled expression, the surprise at my unexpected visit, and I steeled myself for the confrontation that was about to unfold. The vibrant colors of her flower beds, usually a source of calm, now seemed glaringly out of place against the storm brewing within me. I was ready to demand answers, to confront her about the audacity of the situation, and to reclaim my sense of control. After a few moments, the door swung open, and there she stood. Karen. She had that smug look on her face, the kind that made you want to turn around and walk away before you said something you'd regret. But I wasn't walking away from this. What the hell is going on, Karen? I demanded, not even trying to keep the anger out of my voice. Why is there a store on my land? I could feel the heat rising in my chest, my frustration boiling over. Did you know about this? Did you think you could just let them build without telling me? My words came out in a torrent, each question sharper than the last. I want answers, and I want them now. Who gave them permission? Who's behind this? I trusted you, Karen, and now there's a store sitting right where it doesn't belong. How could you let this happen? She blinked at me, feigning innocence. Oh, that? Well, I built it, she said, her voice light, as if she were discussing something trivial. You weren't using the land, and I figured it was the perfect spot for a little shop. You know, for the community. She gave a small shrug, adding, I thought it would be a great way to bring people together. Everyone's been saying we need something like this. I assumed you'd be on board with the idea. It's not like it was being used for anything else, right? On my property? Without even asking me? I shot back, my voice tinged with disbelief and frustration. How could you think that was okay, Karen? Did it not occur to you to pick up the phone and call me? Or even send a text? Anything? I paused, shaking my head in disbelief. You just went ahead and built a store? Assuming I wouldn't have a problem with it? What if I had other plans for that land? You can't just make decisions like this without consulting me first. Karen crossed her arms, her smug smile growing wider. I didn't need to ask, she declared confidently. It's called adverse possession. I put up a fence, and now it's mine. There's nothing you can do about it. She paused, clearly enjoying the moment. You see, once I fenced it off and started using it, the law is on my side. It's all perfectly legal, and I've made sure of it. I knew you wouldn't notice, and now it's too late for you to do anything about it. Her tone was almost taunting, as if daring me to challenge her claim. I could hardly believe what I was hearing. Adverse possession doesn't work like that, Karen, I insisted, my voice firm. You can't just build something and claim it's yours. There are laws, and you're ignoring them. She waved a hand dismissively, clearly unconcerned. Well, if that's not how it works, then it's an easement, she replied, her tone casual. Either way, you can't do anything about it. I've checked, and I'm in the clear. My jaw clenched in frustration. We'll see about that, I retorted, determination in my voice. I'm not going to let this slide. You can't just take what isn't yours and expect no consequences. I wasn't about to let her walk all over me. The very next day, I contacted a lawyer and started the process of suing her. Karen, being Karen, decided she didn't need a lawyer. Apparently, she worked as some kind of paralegal and figured she knew enough to handle it herself. Or maybe no lawyer was willing to take on her ridiculous case. When the lawsuit was filed, she hit back with a countersuit filled with the most absurd claims you could imagine. She claimed I had sold her the land, which was laughable considering she didn't have a single scrap of paper to prove it. Then she doubled down on the adverse possession claim, insisting that because she'd built a fence, the land was hers. And, as if that wasn't enough, she threw in the easement argument again, claiming she had a right to access the land for her little store. The courtroom was a circus. Karen strutted in, acting like she owned the place. She spoke with the confidence of someone who had spent years in courtrooms, but it was clear she was out of her depth. She presented her evidence, which consisted of nothing more than her word and a few blurry photos of the fence. The judge listened patiently, but I could see from the look on his face that he wasn't buying any of it. When it was my turn, my lawyer tore her arguments to shreds. He pointed out that Karen had no title, no receipt, and no legal right to the land. He explained how adverse possession actually worked, highlighting that it required continuous, open, and notorious use of the land for a specific number of years, none of which applied to Karen's situation. As for the easement claim, he made it clear that you can't just declare an easement out of thin air. It has to be legally established, which it most definitely wasn't. The judge didn't need much time to make his decision. He ruled against Karen on every single point. As he delivered his verdict, he explained, Miss Karen, the doctrine of adverse possession requires open, notorious, and continuous use of the land for a specified period, which you have not demonstrated. Furthermore, your claim of easement is unfounded, as there was no agreement or legal basis for such a claim. He continued, as a result, You are responsible for all legal fees incurred by both parties in this case. Additionally, you must compensate the rightful owner for any damages caused by your unauthorized construction. The court will appoint a surveyor to assess the costs associated with removing the structure and restoring the land to its original state. You will bear these expenses as well. The look on Karen's face was priceless, like someone had just told her that her world was about to come crashing down. The judge concluded, failure to comply with these orders will result in further legal action, including potential fines or additional penalties. But it wasn't over yet. Turns out, Karen hadn't bothered to get any permits for the store or the parking lot. No inspections, no approvals, nothing. The county was less than pleased when they found out. They slapped her with a massive fine, not just for building without permits, but for failing to comply with any of the county's building regulations. Karen was ordered to remove the store, the fence, and anything else she'd built. She had to restore my property to its original state, which meant tearing everything down and fixing the damage she'd done to the land. And if that wasn't enough, she was also on the hook for my legal fees and compensation for the time and money I'd lost dealing with this mess. It was a sweet victory, but watching Karen squirm under the weight of her own stupidity was the real reward. She had to sell her property to pay for everything: the fines, the legal fees, the cost of tearing down the store. She lost it all. Yet, in typical Karen fashion, she refused to accept responsibility for any of it. Even as the bulldozers came to tear down her precious store, she stood there, arms crossed, insisting that she'd done nothing wrong. She complained loudly to anyone who would listen about how unfair it all was, how the system was rigged against her. I watched from a distance as they tore down the fence, the store, and the parking lot piece by piece. The land, my land, was finally being returned to what it was supposed to be, untouched and wild. Karen's house was up for sale not long after. I didn't bother to find out where she ended up. All I knew was that she was no longer my problem. But as much as I wanted to put it all behind me, the experience left a mark. I couldn't shake the feeling that, no matter how much land you owned, there was always going to be someone out there who thought they could take a piece of it for themselves. Someone like Karen, who believed the rules didn't apply to her, who thought she could bend the world to her will. In the end, I got my land back, but the fight wasn't just about property. It was about standing up to people like Karen, who think they can do whatever they want without consequence. It was about making sure that when you come for what's mine, you'd better be prepared for a fight. Because this time, Karen learned the hard way that not everyone is going to roll over and let her have her way. She may have lost everything, but the brutal truth is that she never learned a damn thing. Her arrogance had blinded her, and now she was left with nothing but the wreckage of her own decisions. In the end, it wasn't just a loss for her. It was a lesson in humility she would carry with her, whether she wanted to or not. And that, ultimately, is why she lost.
I would like to thank you for watching the video to the end. To encourage us to make more videos, please like, subscribe, comment, as well as share. Check out this other video if you haven't already.